Meeting on an application by 961 Broadway Development LLC for a comprehensive permit. Just to let you know, the way that we usually conduct business is in an informal manner. And people will have testimony tonight. We'll have a summary done by the developer, and we'll go forward. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce our board. We have Stephanie Romano, Peter Rossetti, Bob Northup, Crystal Riley, myself, Tom Travis. And I also want to say that in the audience, because we want to have alternates, and right now we don't, we do have a potential applicant for as an alternate in the audience in Frank Federico. Okay, and so to get started, just to read this in, an application by 961 Broadway Development LLC for a comprehensive permit pursuant to MGL C40B SS 20-23 and 760 CMR 56 to authorize the construction of 180 rental apartment units, 48 perpetually restricted as affordable units at 80% AMI in two structures on an approximate 6.77 acre parcel of land located at 961 Broadway, lot number 1, plan number 1029, 999 Broadway, lot 2, plan 1029, and 39 Rare Forest Street, lot 64, plan number 1029, with 315 parking spaces. Waivers of local bylaws are requested per Chapter 40B from Sections 2.4, 5.6, 5.7, 6.2, 6.8A, 6.8B, 6.8J, 6.9, 7.4 L8, 10.2, Article 12, Article 15, Sections 21.1, zoning bylaws, and Sections 500, 702, and 703 of the general bylaws of the Town of Saugus to authorize the Saugus Zoning Board of Appeals to issue all local approvals under this section, these sections. The purpose tonight is to familiarize all with the development. The developer is going to give a presentation to what's going on, and we'll take it from there. We'll start with that, and after that we'll have some questions and such. Developer is represented on the presentation by, I know Mr. Plummer, I know you're here, but who's representing going to make the presentation?
Hi, good evening. I'm Lynn Sweet from LDS Consulting Group in Wellesley, Massachusetts. I'm going to hand out the presentation so you each have that, and then sit behind the computer and talk a little bit more.
Oops, thank you.
Thank you. How do you want to do this?
So if I talk into the microphone here, can they hear, or is it just for the audio?
No, you can, and if I can get moving.
Just move over here.
Watch out, you're caught on the mat, John.
I know that's my problem.
Okay, take your off. slide over.
That's good for now.
The mic's live.
Not used to being on this side of the table.
Okay.
I'm going to email the presentation to Stephanie, who works for the board, and she will post it presumably on the internet like she has the other documents.
Isn't that the whole way around? I mean, if you pass them out, people can read it and ask questions at the same time.
Yep. You know, sir, if you could come up to the mic and identify yourself. If you could step up to the mic.
Everett Millay from Main Street in Saugus. All I'm asking is, if they passed out information about this product, why don't they have enough here that these people that came from the town could look at, instead of you sending me an email, I have to read it next week, and then, are you gonna have another meeting so we can ask questions at that point?
Oh, yeah.
So this is not dead tonight.
No.
So we can read it, come back, everybody will answer the questions. That's
Let
all I
me
wanna
address
know.
that,
What?
Mr. Malay, you can sit down, but let me address
Okay.
that. This process is probably gonna take, the last time we did a 40B, and I know the developer doesn't like to hear this, it took us 10 months. The usual time, I'm gonna guess, is probably 6 months' worth of meetings. So nothing's gonna happen real fast. And, you know, the townspeople are gonna put all, you know, their 2 cents, we're gonna listen to everyone. And the fact that it takes 6 months isn't to be looked upon as a negative. That's just how long it takes. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to ask my client to come up and say hello, and then I'll introduce the rest of the team, if you don't mind.
Hi, my name is Sal Palumbo. I'm the developer of this project. I want to say hello to you fellow board members, Mr. Travis, Mr. fellow attorney Stephanie, Jesse. Hello. I want to say that we've put a lot of work and effort into this project, almost a year's worth. I've hired some of the best people in the industry that have drawn, looked, engineered, and done everything they could possibly do. We're still, you know, at a pace that we want to be welcomed into this town. I've been a resident in this town for 10 years. I've had my business here for 20 years. And I've been in the business for over 50, but I don't want to tell you how old I am, but I've been here a long time. So aside from that, I want to say that I think the project is well needed in town. It will be great. And aside from that, I want to say, I want to assure everybody here at this meeting that we will not exit or enter from Forest Street. We will only come through 961 Broadway as far as exiting or entering this project. And what more can I tell you? I think you need to listen to these experts, engineers, architects, and the best people around. And Lynn has been fantastic, and she has spearheaded this whole thing. And I just want to turn the meeting over to you, Mr. Chairman, and you can go from there, okay?
All right, thank you.
And also I want to tell you, my phone is available, it's very public. If anybody has any questions, comments, please call me directly, because, you know, I still work 7 days a week. I'm in my office, and I take everybody to heart. And I have properties in a lot of other communities, but this is my home. Saugus is my home. So let's see what we can do and make something really good out of this place, okay? That's all I ask. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're going to try and we know we submitted a lot of material, so we're going to just try and hit the high-level information tonight because there's, as the chairman said, there's going to be plenty of time to review the details. The rest of our team here tonight, we have Colin Johannan from Tetra Tech, Jay Szymanski, who is with the architectural team, our architect. We have Natalie Adams from Vernon Landscape Architecture. And we have Dan LaCivita from Vanessa & Associates, our traffic engineer, and our 40B attorney, Paul Haverty from Blattman, Burbowski, Haverty, and Silverstein. And so you'll be hearing from most of them after I give you a little bit of an overview here. So for those of you not familiar with 40Bs, the starting process is what's called a project eligibility process. That is that we submitted documentations to a quasi-governmental agency back in June, Mass Housing. Just preliminary information, their job is to make 7 findings, like the site is appropriate for housing, the developer is qualified to build the housing, the numbers make sense, the architecture fits in with the community, and so on and so forth. So during the project eligibility process, the town was given an opportunity to comment on our preliminary information, as well as we did a site walk with representatives from Mass Housing and town officials, your attorney, back in July. Of course, it had to be the hottest day of the year to be standing on the top of a concrete garage. And the town did submit their first set of comments to Mass Housing and the developer on this project at the end of August. And on October 11th, Mass Housing did issue the project eligibility letter. The project eligibility letter allowed the project team to file with the Zoning Board of Appeals for this comprehensive permit process. We did that in late October on Halloween, and it was accepted by the municipality. So as far as the Zoning Board of Appeals process goes, there is basically a prescribed schedule that we will all endeavor to follow as to when you're supposed to have your first hearing. Since it was the holidays and so on, the development team said we're going to waive our 30 days. We're going to go a couple months out so that we can make sure this can be in a room and everybody can be present. So, but from the opening hearing, legally there is 180 days to hear the project continuously. That's 6 months. If everything is going well and progress is being made, oftentimes that time is extended. So during the hearing process, the applicant will pay for the town to hire peer reviewers. Typically, those peer reviewers review in the areas of traffic and stormwater management. So the developer pays the bills, but these are peer reviewers that are responsible and report to the town and represent the town's interests in the process. If and when the board closes the hearing, they do have a time period from which to also make a decision. And when the board votes for the project, they can vote to approve, they can vote to approve with conditions, or they can vote to deny. We're hoping that they're going to vote to approve. And then that is not the end of the process. The development team needs to go back to that governmental agency, to Mass Housing, for what's called a final approval. And then obviously go to the building department and make sure that they have complied with all of the different conditions in a decision. So it really is a good year-long process. Oftentimes we get asked when you're going to go in the ground, a year or two at least. It takes time to do drawings, it takes time to get approvals, it takes time to get a building permit, it takes time to get financing. Sal touched on a couple of things. First of all, the team has really been working on this for some time. We did our best to try and anticipate some of the questions and concerns that might be coming down the road. And in particular, Sal mentioned that one of the biggest features to this project is that all cars will enter and exit from Route 1. And so we've done other testing that your peer reviewers presumably will review. We did water pressure testing to make sure there was enough pressure in the hydrants so that the fire department will be satisfied that there will be water available in the case of an emergency. In addition, Sal mentioned that he does own the office building that sits in front of this project, and that he is working hard. He understands there's some issues with it. He's trying to replace the pumps in out front on Route 1 to reduce, to make sure that any water going in front of the building is being pumped so that there are no puddles out on Route 9. We also, and you'll see this from Jay, we had some shadow studies performed. These are big buildings. We're not going to lie about that. But we just wanted to make sure what happens in the spring, summer, fall, and winter when the sun hits these buildings, where will their shadows fall? Hopefully not on the neighborhood. We also did an in-depth traffic study that you're going to hear a little bit more about. We did a complete stormwater management plan that is about 100 pages if you're interested in reading through it. And we also, for those who may or may not know the site, there is a substantial gas line that runs through the site. So from day one, we have been in discussions with Kinder Morgan, who is sort of the developer oversight team of the gas line, to try and find out what can we do, what can't we do. And you'll hear from our landscape architect, Natalie. We spent a lot of time trying to see how can we preserve green space and not disturb anything under there. So, you know, rest assured, if there's any blasting, again, I don't know what there's going to be. Everything is going to have to go through the gas line. It's going to be very, very careful construction management plan to make sure that there are no issues there. We also created a lot division plan because we're going to carve off the existing office building and the parking garage so that it is its own standalone lot operated on its own, and the residential structures, the two residential structures, will be on their own lot as well. One of the tests that legal tests that when a ZBA is asked to review a project is to try and look at what the local concerns are and make a finding as to whether or not the regional need for affordable housing might outweigh local concerns. You'll see at the end of this presentation that we are going to be asking for some waivers to the underlying zoning that's considered a local concern. So today, 47% of Saugus renters are paying more than 30% of their income on rental costs, and 23% of that 40% are actually severely rent burdened. That means they're paying more than 50% of their income on rental costs. That expresses a need for more rental housing in Saugus, and in particular, the affordable units that are part of this project. We also looked back at Saugus's housing production plan, and there were some general goals in that plan that we feel that the project will meet. We looked at some regional studies. Again, this is a regional test, not just a local test, that showed we are underhoused in Massachusetts. We are in the middle of a housing crisis. We need more housing units. With regard to the affordability of the project, 25% of the units will be affordable to households at 80% of area median income. There is, as a result of that, all of the units on this project, I believe it's 189 units, by the way, not 180, all of those units will be counted on the town's subsidized housing inventory. And we believe that if and when this project gets approved, this will put the town over its 10% burden that the state has imposed on it. All of the affordable units, they're not going to go away. They're going to be affordable in perpetuity. There won't be any distinction between the affordable and the market rate units. The properties will be owned and managed by Sal, by a local company. So if you have a problem, call Sal. It's not going to be managed by some out-of-state company, located in Texas. He's part of the community. He's not going anywhere. He wants to build a product that he can be proud of and that you can be proud of. And with regard to the affordable units, there will be a lottery for those affordable units. It's hopeful that the state will approve that there be a 70% local preference for those units. And we, again, expect to use a local company for our lottery as well. I'm going to give a very quick overview of the development, and I think I'm going to turn it over to our team. We are proposing 189 rental units in 2 buildings. They're divided with 80 units in 1 building. That's the building that's going to be closest to the office building, and 109 units in I'll say the back building on the back side of the site. They are 6 and 8 stories, but you'll see when we show you the plans, because there's a gravity issue there. A lot of the units in the parking are going to be lower. We have worked really hard on our unit mix, so that 63 of our units are 1-bedroom units. They're smaller units, and 26% are 2-bedroom units. And then the state imposes a 10% 3-bedroom standard on any 40Bs. So 11% of our units are 3-bedroom units. So we've tried to concentrate on smaller units. We think that that's what the market is looking for. And we also think that it may cut down on car trips and so on and so forth. The site itself today is the entrance is with the hotel on one side and with Hockey Town on the other side. It's not the prettiest piece of real estate right now, and we're hoping to improve on that. The small commercial building will be removed, and we will have a very large boulevard going up to the project. And we are going to have a fully elevated building, therefore there is an opportunity for ADA units as well. It will be a Class A unit, high-end finishes, open concept floor plans, and most importantly, on-site leasing. You're going to have on-site management there. And we have put some passive recreation in and around the gas easement. All lighting on the site will be what's considered dark sky compliant, and I think Natalie can explain that better. We also anticipate that we're going to have a school bus drop-off and pickup area somewhere down on Route 1, and we just want to check with the school department to see what's the most important location for them. We don't want to make any assumptions.
Can you say that? I'm having trouble hearing. Can you say that one statement again? You're having school buses?
So presumably, because it's 109 units, and some of those units are 2 and 3 bedrooms, there may be children who will attend Saugus schools. So we want to speak with the school department and have them tell us if somebody from the site needs to take a bus to school, where should we put a bus stop for them, a waiting area for them to be picked up. So that's not something we have had time to figure out yet, but we will figure it out as part of this process.
And I know I'm going to go up.
Yeah, can
Is
you
there any
finish?
way you can ask questions as you go along?
Mr. Malay, it's hard to let you come up to the mic.
Okay, can we get through everyone's presentation, because we'll show the maps
The
and
way you're
everything?
talking, and I realize you live in Saugus.
You handle them. It's your meeting.
And I realize you're talking about the schools, but my concern is, can the town, the infrastructure of the town, all right? And you just brought up the kids. That Main Street and the high school is overpacked now. And anybody that has kids in that school, there's 2 ways into that high school.
Well, that's why she said they're gonna work with the school committee.
Yeah, but even if you work with the school committee, anything else, how are you getting there? The only way you get there and if their parents driving there, or you got a school bus, they're coming out of that thing, going down the pike, up over Main Street, and either spending an hour on Main Street to try to get to the school, or when they leave, spend another hour to try to get back.
All right, well, we'll get to, when we do traffic studies and stuff, we'll get to that, Mr. Millet. Let her finish her presentation to see.
All right.
Okay? You'll have your say.
Thank you. So I'm going to do one last slide here because it's oftentimes confusing about the parking, and Colin will go through this with the plans, and then Jay even more so with the building plans. So there's a parking garage on site today. That parking garage is totally underutilized. The hotel has an easement to park 125 cars in the parking garage and has at most 20 cars a day. The office building which is fully occupied, at most has 50 cars that they're using. So the parking garage that's on the site today is very much underutilized. If we looked at the underlying zoning, what zoning says the office building should have, that's 165 parking spaces. Then you have the easement for the hotel for 125 parking spaces. There are a total of 339 spaces in the parking garage today. And so today there's 49 excess parking spaces. So we are proposing for the new residential development, that's this slide right here. I don't know if my little, oh good, it goes there. So what we're proposing for the residential is that we are going to have 90 parking spaces that are going to be at grade, surface parking spaces that are going to be newly created spaces around the new two residential buildings. Underneath Building A, there will be 34 parking spaces, and underneath Building B, there will be 55 parking spaces. So the need for the project to use garage parking spaces is 136. Again, mind you, 49 are not even, are up for grabs. So we are proposing that the parking garage, those additional 70 or so spaces, be called what's called shared parking, meaning the office building and the hotel, can use them during the day, and then the residents will park there at night. I also didn't mention that Mr. Palumbo is actually making a lot of repairs to the parking garage today as well. So if we total up all of our parking spaces and we say, well, how many parking spaces do we have per unit? We have 1.7 parking spaces per unit. Again, the traffic peer reviewer is gonna look at this very closely for you. So I'm now going to turn it over to Colin, and you just tell me when you want me to flip.
Thank you, Lynn. So what we're looking at right now is the existing conditions plan, and from this plan you can see that the site is bounded by Route 1 to the east, and we've got commercial properties, Hockeytown to the north, and commercial properties to the south. The western boundary of the site, it backs up to the residential properties on Forest Street. As is mentioned before, there is no planned connection for vehicles or pedestrians between Forest Street and the project. Again, has been mentioned before, there is a gas line easement that traverses the site. It essentially splits the site in half, which is what's led us to set up two buildings for the residential development. Let me see, there's one other item I want to talk about on the existing conditions plan. That is the stormwater management. There's an existing detention basin at the front of the existing office building. This detention basin manages the stormwater from most of the existing site. Currently, Sal is in the process of having the pumps for that detention basin repaired, and that will be brought back into its normal operating condition in the near future. We can switch to the next slide, please. All right, here we see the proposed site with the 2 residential buildings. Building closest to the office building is Building A.
She's working on it.
We have the technology. Oops, sorry. Hang on. Okay,
Okay, one more slide. This is the utility plan, sorry.
shoot, okay.
Okay, this is fine. So the residential building closest to the existing office is Building A, and that will house 90 units. Is that correct,
80
Lynn?
units.
80 units. And then the building that's closer to the rear property line is Building B, and that will house 109 units. As has been mentioned before, there is parking proposed underneath both of the residential buildings, and we have a significant number of surface parking spaces sorted throughout the site. I believe it's a total of 90 spaces. The main access to the site, yep, Lynn is pointing to it right now, is a boulevard type entrance that comes off of Route 1. There will be a landscape median in between the 2 lanes. It's intended to make more of a grand entrance than what we see now. The next thing I wanted to point out would be on at the rear of the site, the 2 rear corners. We have stormwater management areas where we'll have detention basins that will manage stormwater from the rear portion of the site. And correct, that rear corner also. And that will, the stormwater basin that Lynn is pointing to will also serve as a physical barrier to access out to Forest Street. We can switch to the next slide and we'll get into utilities. Okay. The water supply for the site will come from a main 12-inch water main that exists in Route 1. There have already been taps made into the main to serve the project. There is an existing 8-inch tap that serves the office building, and there is an existing 8-inch tap that comes into the 961 area that Lynn is pointing to right now. When the project is complete, those two taps will be looped with an 8-inch main that runs through the entire site. There will be fire hydrants at specified intervals throughout the site to provide water for emergency use. The sewer service for the 2 buildings will also be connected to the town's sewage collection system. Building B will connect to an existing pipeline that runs from Hockeytown to Forest Street. And the Building A, closest to the office building will connect to the sewer service that is currently utilized by the existing office building. And then there are plans for extending electrical and telecommunications services from Route 1 out to the proposed buildings. And I think that covers it for most of the site overview. Thank you.
Wait. Hang on.
Thank you very much, Colin. For the record, my name is Daniel Lasivita. I'm a traffic engineer with Vanass & Associates. We're the traffic consultants for the project. We performed a full and detailed transportation impact assessment, or fancy word for a traffic study, for the project that was prepared in consultation with both the town of Saugus as well as with Mass DOT. Excuse me. And the traffic study itself includes a detailed assessment of peak hour traffic volume operations, as well as a review of pedestrian, bicycle, and public transportation services that are available within the vicinity of the project site. Two important things to note that were kind of findings of the traffic study were that based on a review of motor vehicle crash data that we pulled from available Mass DOT data, no intersections close to the project site were found to have any safety deficiencies. And furthermore, lines of sight to and from the proposed driveways onto Route 1 were found to meet and exceed the recommended minimum sight lines to operate in a safe manner. Next slide, please, Lynn. Thank you. So it may be a little difficult to see here, but kind of in the center of the aerial map shows the project site in relation to Route 1. We've said this a couple times throughout this presentation, but we do think that it's an important thing to keep bringing up, that all vehicular traffic associated with the project will come to or from Route 1 southbound, trying to keep as much as we possibly can off of the local side streets. Next slide, please, Lynn. This slide shows the study area that we had assessed as a part of the traffic study. We looked at intersections along Route 1, as well as its interchanges with Main Street and the Lynn Fells Parkway up to the north, as well as two signalized intersections to the west of Route 1. Just for context, Route 1 southbound, based on the traffic counts that we had done this past summer, carries approximately 56,000 vehicles over the course of an entire day, with about 3,500 to 4,500 during the peak hours. So those are the peak hours during which the roadway carries the most traffic, which coincide to your commuter peak hours during the weekday morning and the weekday evening peak hours. So those are just kind of some good numbers to keep in mind as we go forward. As you can see, based on this slide, denoted by the little orange dashes and blue lines at the intersections that may be a little tough to see from this scale, there exists ample pedestrian accommodations, a lot of sidewalks, crosswalks, things like that to help facilitate non-vehicle trips coming to or from the site. Next slide. Thank you, Lynn. To help assess the impact of the project on the transportation infrastructure, we estimated the amount of vehicle trips generated that we expect to be generated by the project on a daily basis, as well as during those same commuter peak hours that I referenced. Using statistics published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, or the ITE, as you might hear them referenced, we expect the project to generate on an average weekday approximately 860 vehicle trips. And it is important to note that a vehicle trip in this context is a one-way trip. So a vehicle that leaves in the morning counts as 1 trip, and returns in the evening from work counts as 2 trips. Same thing as we look at the peak hours. We anticipate 72 to 74 vehicle trips associated with the project, either leaving or arriving to the site during those peak hours. And once again, if we take a look at these numbers in reference to Route 1 southbound, which once again was 56,000 vehicle trips over the course of a day, and 3,500 to 4,500 vehicle trips during each of the peak hours, we see that the predicted increase in traffic is expected to be relatively minimal. The percentage increase is less than 2%, a proverbial pouring a bucket into an ocean, if you will. Next slide, please, Lynn. To then assess the impact of the project and the intersections that we looked at, we dispersed these project-generated trips within the study area based on a review of U.S. Census data where residents of Saugus work. We anticipate that the majority of, approximately 70% of traffic associated with the project is expected to originate to and from Route 1 in itself. Therefore, they're after transitioning off into other highways or interstates during their commutes. Next slide, please, Lynn. And then, based on a review of the impacts of the project, we came up with a series of recommendations as they relate to 2 things. One, the site access and circulation, which I won't go through all of these lengthy bullet points, but they include things such as recommendations as it relates to driveway length, the distance behind parking spaces, making sure crosswalks are ADA compliant, making sure that anything put within the site triangles of the project site driveways are low enough so that it doesn't restrict the line of sight for a vehicle pulling out onto Route 1. And then in addition, next slide please then, we also provided a comprehensive transportation demand management, or TDM, program with an overall goal of reducing the number of vehicles that enter or exit the project site. And that was just kind of a very high-level overview of the traffic study in itself. As you've heard referenced by Lynn, in all likelihood, the traffic study will be peer-reviewed. So we essentially wrote and produced the traffic study. It has been submitted. Town staff will be reviewing it, and it will go to a third-party independent peer reviewer as well, just to make sure that everything that we had done is above the board, all the numbers make sense and are in line with the Mass DOT guidelines for such traffic studies. And with that, I believe I'm turning it over to Jay.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Jay Szymanski. I'm an architect with TAT. We are the architects for the project. Just for reference, we were also the architects for the Toll Brothers project across the highway, and also the Avalon project just a little bit further north from this project. So this first slide is just an overview, giving you an image of the 2 proposed buildings. You can see they're towards the back of the site, behind the hotel, behind the garage, behind the office building, and they're set up at the highest part of the site. Go to the next slide, please. So because of the contours of the site and the elevation of the site, the buildings have to step as they work their way up to keep them as low as possible. So what you're looking at here is, as you come up that drive, the first portion of the buildings that you'll get to, which is part of Building B, is this L-shaped parking garage. So that's the first element that you'll get to. Next slide. You continue up the drive. This will be the entrance to Building B. You'll see a kind of horseshoe-shaped drop-off area for vehicles, and then you'd enter the building inside that horseshoe. Sorry, Lynn, I'm on Building B in the back. The orange portion of the building is the residential lobby, the management offices, and all of those blue boxes are residential units. And Basically, it's a very typical double-loaded corridor arrangement where you have a common corridor down the middle of the building with units on either side of that corridor. Next slide. So again, we continue up the hill further. The next piece you'll get to is the second level of parking underneath Building B. Yep, that's shown in gray there. And the rest of the Building B floor plan on this level are additional residential units. Continuing up the drive further, you'll get to Buildings A in the garage under that building. And on the front side of that, you'll see in orange is the lobby that's accessed by a vehicular drop-off area just in front of that. Next slide. So this is now level 4. And again, you'll see orange spaces. The orange denotes common spaces. So those are residential amenity spaces, so lounge, fitness center, work from home areas. And the intent here was to try to put those on relatively close levels between the two buildings to provide some connection between the two. So both of those amenity spaces that are on the inside have patios associated with it. So there's outdoor amenity space associated with that indoor amenity space, so there can be some connectivity between the two buildings, both inside and outside. Next slide. So now we're up above those amenity spaces, and these are just the typical residential floors. Again, all the blue boxes are residential apartments, and they're connected by corridors, common corridors, which are shown in the yellow. Next slide. So this is an aerial view looking across Route 1. You'll see Route 1 going right to left. So this is kind of above Walmart, looking back at the project. You'll see our 2 new proposed buildings, again, back on the hill, behind the garage, behind the office building. And I think the important thing to note here is the amount of wooded buffer that's between our building and the abutters on Forest Street. We really took some time to make sure the buildings were located far enough away from those abutters to lessen the impact on the residences behind. Next slide. So this is now an aerial view coming from the other side. Forest Street is now in the foreground at the bottom of the slide, and Route 1 is at the top. Again, this shows the wooded buffer in between our building and the residential neighbors around us. Next slide. So these are 2 site sections, and that it's a term that basically describes a cut through the existing site. So the top one labeled section AA is being cut from Route 1, which is on the left of the image, all the way through to Forest Street, which is on the right. And this cuts right through the existing garage. You see the gray mass in the middle is the existing garage. And again, the important thing to note here is the distance between Forest Street and our building is about 375 feet horizontally, and we're about 50 feet higher in elevation than Forest Street. So this also shows that wooded buffer in between to provide that level of separation. The section on the bottom, labeled section BB, this is a little bit further south, cut through the site. Again, Route 1 is on the far left, Forest Street is on the right. And again, I think this highlights pretty well the horizontal distance between those residential neighbors and also the vertical separation to provide as much buffer as possible. Next slide. So these are actually 2 views taken from Forest Street looking back up the hill at the proposed site. And it's very hard to see here because it's bright in this room, but we've ghosted in where the existing, or where the proposed buildings are located. And what you'll see is that they're almost entirely obscured by the trees. So you really can barely see the buildings behind those trees.
It's too bad. It's better on my screen.
Yeah. Sorry? So this is another view from Forest Street, a little bit further to the south, again, looking back at the site. And again, you just barely see the top of the building there peeking out above the trees. Next slide. So Lynn mentioned that we did some shadow studies. So if folks are unfamiliar with these, what we do is that we look at the shadows at 4 different times of the year. We do March 21st, June 21st, September 21st, and December 21st. And on each of those dates, we look at 4 times of the day. 9 a.m., which is on the top left, 12 on the top right, and then the bottom 2 are 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. So the proposed buildings are shown in orange here, bright orange, and the new shadow is shown in that bright blue color. The existing shadows are shown in gray. So you can see on the top left, the new shadow is cast to the west at 9 a.m., but it doesn't come close to approaching the neighbors on Forest Street. You move over to noon, now the sun is moving around, it's almost directly overhead at that point, so the shadows get much tighter to the buildings. The bottom one on 3 p.m., again, the shadows are moving now a little bit to the east. You can see they're moving towards Route 1. And then the bottom one is 6. And again, at 6 p.m. in March, the shadows get very long. They're crossing Route 1 at that point. But you should note that the existing shadows shown in gray already cross Route 1. So our impact shown in blue there is very minimal. Next slide. So this is now June 21, again, the same series of times. In June, the sun is much higher in the sky, so the shadows are much, much tighter to the building. And you can see the minimal impact of those shadows. Next slide. This is September. September is very similar to March in terms of the sun's location in the sky, so the shadows are very similar. In the morning, they go to the west, and then they gradually move around the building during the day and end up with shadows extending to the east at the later hours. Next slide. So this is now December. As you all, I'm sure, are aware, in December the sun is very low in the sky, so the shadows get much longer. So in December, 9 a.m., the shadows extend pretty far to the west, but again, the existing shadows from both the existing buildings, the elevation of the hill itself, and the trees already extend that far at that time of the year. At noontime in December, you'll see the shadows again moving their way towards Route 1, but still fairly compact. 3 p.m. they're moving again towards Route 1, and then at 6 p.m. in December, we're pretty much in darkness at that point. Next. With that, I'll hand it over to Natalie.
Thanks, Jay. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Natalie Adams. I'm a landscape architect with Verdant Landscape Architecture. What you're looking at here is the overall site plan, and as I move through the presentation, we'll be looking at enlargements, and then the last page will end with this as well. Next page, please. This is the project's entry drive, and the presence on Route 1 is announced with the project signage, and that we have a placeholder here, and we're going to follow all the bylaws for the town of Saugus for that signage. We are also proposing a school bus stop at this location. However, we will be looking for direction and coordination from the town and the school district for that piece as well. As we move up the entry drive, notice the tree-lined medium and the central medium in the middle, and on each side there's a buffer zone of plants and small trees. Next slide, please. This is Building B. So as we round the corner of the entry drive, the first building we see is Building B. And we've designed a D-shaped drop-off zone here, and an entry court which is populated with dynamic paving, trees, bike racks, benches, and also note those 2 ADA spaces right there in the middle. Yes. Next slide, please. And this is Building A. And as the access drive continues to climb around the site, responding to existing grades and retaining walls along the drive where they're needed, Building A's eastern edge is adjacent to the existing parking garage. At this drop-off zone, again, note that it's a dynamic entry court with pervious paving, bike racks, benches, and planting. Next page, please. This is the fun page. This is the amenity space page. And both buildings have a primary amenity space linked to them. And these amenity spaces are for entertainment, relaxation, gathering. There's an access path between the amenity spaces and so between the buildings as well. Next page, please. And this is the flexible open space page, I call it. So we're looking at this gas easement that really runs through the site, and we want to give the tenants opportunities to explore this. So we're keeping any large trees off of that gas easement. Now, another thing that is to be noted, pools and structures that require large footings, tall light posts, are avoided within this zone. But this space, I think, offers a lot of social opportunities for the tenants, and you'll note the dogs and, you know, people hanging out in this space. Well, those are the images I collected, but next page, please. We also have a play area, and the asphalt path from the amenity spaces lead to that play area, and we have different play products for, we're trying to get as many age groups in as possible, and we have benches and a picnic table, and the whole play area will be fenced for security and to keep the tots safe. Next page is our lighting page, and we will be meeting the lighting requirements for the town of Saugus, minimizing glare, complying with dark sky requirements, and no spillage over the property lines to other properties. And I'm wrapping up now with my plant list, and this is a probable plant list for this site. It's a hilltop community. And we're using natives to support the local pollinators. And I was briefed tonight, but I'm always willing to answer questions. The next page is the site plan, and I will end at that. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we've been running through everything. Later on in the hearing process, after we've reviewed a lot of the facts and the figures, we will go through a waiver list, and that waiver list for a project of this size is actually relatively very short. Most of the waivers in our waiver list are procedural. For example, the Zoning Board of Appeals is hearing this, so we would waive site plan approval, for example, from the Planning Board. And so our waivers, the biggest waivers that we have, and again, we're going to go over this in more detail as we get through the process. There currently is a building permit moratorium in place. We're going to be asking for a waiver on density because the building is larger than what is allowed under existing zoning. There's a hillside protection. It's in a hillside protection district, and our parking numbers are below what the current town bylaws require. So I'm going to wrap up our presentation and turn the meeting back over to the chair. We look forward to hearing your comments, to meeting with department heads. Happy to go on a site walk if the board desires that, and talk about next steps. Do you want me to leave this up here in case someone wants to go back to it, or should I take it with me?
You can leave it here, just.
Okay, so I'm gonna, whoa.
Okay.
Talk about a grade, a grade change.
Full of slant. All right, thank you for all those who presented. At this point, I'd like to okay. I'd like to introduce our the special town council on this, Jesse Shulman, who's down the end. The town is represented by council. He's also arranging for peer review people. Jesse, you have any words you might want to say right now, or?
Sure. So, for the record, and for everybody's benefit, my name is Jesse Schumer. I'm outside special town council for the town of Saugus. I'll be not representing, I'll be advising the board with respect to this project and the process that the board needs that the suite outlined previously. She was accurate in the statement of the respective timeline. It's a long process. The board review process, there will be a lot of opportunities for comment by members of the public. The board is interested in the feedback, especially those of you who are located to the site. With respect to the process of peer review, Mr. Chair, that is presently underway where the process of retaining peer review consultants will be advising the board. What would be helpful for the town manager's benefit as he works forward at that process, and we hope to have that completed within the next week or so, is if there are any specific topics that the board members would like to have included in the scope of the peer reviewer's review of the project. Presently, what is contemplated to be reviewed is a comprehensive civil engineering analysis, which will include all aspects of the site plan, all aspects of the stormwater management plan, comparison with applicable town bylaws that would normally be applied to a project like this. For example, the site plan review guidelines, the town's rules and regulations governing the subdivision of land with respect to roadway standards and things of that nature. In addition to civil engineering, Mr. Chair, there will be a review of traffic, as Mr. LaCivita mentioned, that will analyze not only the traffic volume that will be generated by a project like this, but also the applicable safety issues and concerns that I'm sure we'll hear from members of the public tonight regarding a project with access on a major state highway. In addition to traffic and civil, the town will be retaining an architectural peer review to analyze the massing of the building and the design of the building and its appropriateness based on the density that's proposed for the site of this nature and given the neighborhood concerns that you'll be hearing tonight. So beyond those topics, Mr. Chair, if there are specific issues that you would like the peer reviewers to be looking into as they review the plans, we'll be sure to include those in the scope of work that is
great.
in place.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the general public. I'm hoping that the general public will keep their comments limited to things that are relevant right now, more so almost asking questions along what you're looking for the developer to cover. They're looking for complete answers this evening. I know there are some members that have some information out in the public that do want to bring forward. At this point, is there anyone who would like to speak? Recognize Mr. Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and thank the consultant firm for the presentation. What I'm still a little leery about, and I haven't had the opportunity to look at any topo plans of the project, but if I'm correct, you said the top of the hill is 50 foot higher than Forest Street. I don't think enough presentation was submitted tonight as to, we were talking parking garages and 6-story buildings. A 6-story building, if that's just residential without the underground parking, that's a building over at least 70 feet, the same exact height of the buildings at Essex Landing. And that's going to impact, to me, it's going to impact the neighbors back there. But what I would like to see the board do is focus on the height of them buildings. I think that's the main issue here. And if when we do a site visit, if we could have the engineers stake out the corners of the buildings, and like we did with, I believe it was Kowloon, they put a string up with a balloon as to what the final height of the buildings are going to be. If we could do that on every corner of the stakes, I think that would give us a better idea of the impact and the height of them buildings, because tonight I didn't get any clear answers about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At some point, we will be arranging for a site visit, I'm sure. Anyone else in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, how are you? I live on Forest Street. My name's Tricia. Nice presentation, guys. I appreciate it. I have a list of questions I just kind of threw together as we were going through this. My main concerns are height, traffic, and blasting. So on Forest Street, there are no sidewalks on our street at all. So that's always been a challenge. One of the things I'm realizing when we talked about the southbound traffic, anybody who's going to be driving north to get home, knowing or whatever, that they might have to loop around, their behavior is they're going to cut through over by like the Stop and Shop exit, go Main Street, cut Forest, go up to the little plaza where like Skechers and stuff is, so they can then go south to avoid traffic or to have to like overshoot and come back in. So that's something to consider. That we get a pretty good cut through anyway on Forest Street for just people getting out of traffic or the fire engines and whatnot. So I think you might not realize that that's going to be the smart trick to avoid going up and back down again. I don't know what the answer is, but something to think about. So blasting, I do remember hearing, I think, is it Prankers that they were doing a building and some people were having problems with their foundations cracking because of the blasting. That's a lot of ledge up there. So I don't know if anyone's put a claim in. I know it's on the town website, as in like fill this out and let us know if you have a problem, but I don't know if that really gets you any fixing of your.
I didn't hear, there was a lot of more preemptive before the blasting than afterwards, I believe.
I haven't heard from anybody
I
going
haven't
through the
heard-
experience, but I certainly have a concern about it, because
I
I'm
haven't
very
heard
close
from
to this.
anyone.
I'm like across the street,
Yeah.
or behind the street, or whatever. So if, somebody can write these down so you guys can go over them, I hope. Definitely the height of the building. I don't know if I'm clear as to where it is compared to the height of the old Hilltop. That one looks like it has, 4 or so floors of livable space. But anything higher than that, to me, seems like you're getting a little too high for looking up, over, and into the backyards of our properties in Forest. Keep in mind, the leaves go down.
I will say, driving down, especially in the fall, driving down Forest Street, that you see the Hilltop project.
You see right through
You
it.
see that project.
Yeah.
You won't see much of this.
But will you see it when the leaves are out, falling?
I think it's a different type of ground cover. The landscape people
So
can,
something to make note
can say
and look
it's more
into?
conifer, it's not leaves, it's more
Yeah, so time of
evergreens
year,
and
is it going to
such
go through?
that are annual.
The height, obviously, going up, and
Right,
like,
it's a
you may not
concern.
see it,
We'll address it.
yeah, so you
it's
may not
definitely
see
a
it from the
concern.
people that are abutters, but you might see it from 2 rows back. So views from the yards, obviously the gas line you guys are talking about. Allegedly, this is going to max out our 40B, or is this going to be the project where you build it, you throw in 2 40Bs just so that you can do another 2 40Bs somewhere else down the road? Like, is this required
I
to?
think this is probably maxing out can be done on this lot. The developer would have to handle that, but I don't think he's looking to build these 189, and then 2 years from now, he asks for another 150. The
Well,
land's
why
out there
wouldn't
for
you? It's a
something like that.
moneymaker. Of course you're going to want to.
I don't think there's any expansion room there. I think
Well, in a
it's
different
pretty
part of
maxed out
Saugus.
for lots.
I mean, somewhere else.
Well, it could be somewhere else in Saugus.
Yeah. But so my concern is,
That's
let's
not-
not keep trickling in the 40Bs just to get another property, to get another
This,
property.
this would put us over the 10%. We would not have to, our hands get pretty much tied. We're gonna, 40B project will
Yeah, you
go
have to hit the
through.
number.
But we'll get over 10%, so we'll have more say in what projects come into town when this
Okay,
one
as long
comes
as we're
online. Did I
Confirming
say that
that.
right? I think so.
We don't want to
I
like
say that
double
right,
speak. We
Dana?
want to be truthful. Like, are we
Yeah.
really going to hit 10%?
This could be the last one, yes.
Okay. I'm not against the 40B part. I'm against the blasting, the height, and the other things. So tax liability, I'm pretty sure I've heard this correctly, that the commercial tax and the personal property tax are separate, so this doesn't really help us up or down with our own property taxes, having more residents.
Well,
Like, if anything, we maybe pay more? I don't know. It would be nice if something would offset our property taxes and not keep climbing them.
Well, they're gonna, when it's done, there's gonna be a lot of taxes paid in this project, so I think that would
So I get a discount.
offset something.
Can somebody confirm building A and B, are those parking subterranean or we're building on top of them? Anybody know? Building A and B, are those parking below? Are they subterranean, like blast in and make them lower and then you're going to build, or you're building on top of the ground grade that's there?
We're trying to build on the grade that's there. I'm sure there'll be some blasting because the grade is sloped. We're putting flat things on a sloped surface.
Yep.
So we're trying our best. That's why we're stepping up the hill, trying to work those grades the best we can, existing grades the best we can.
So is the front of the building going to say have more apartments than the back of the building because of the grade, or you're going to keep everything the same amount all the way through? It's just whether it's recessed into the stone.
Some portion, so if you're on a single level, some portion might be garage that's tucked into the slope, and the rest of it might be residential.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it's.
The reason I ask, I just don't want to be deceived about the height of the building. Like, if it's, 6 stories on top of parking already, that adds a lot more height. Like, I like the idea of what they said with the balloon. Like, I want to know, like, how tall is it really going to be staring at me when I'm in my yard?
That was the idea when they showed you with the shadows.
I'm also concerned about the
couldn't really see it
shadows.
real good.
I can handle
Well, you
shadow.
could
I
see-
don't want
you could see
people
the
looking at
trees
me.
And then where the building, what you could see from Forest Street.
Yeah,
It didn't show up that good.
yeah. It's more about the
But
visibility
I
of the guy
understand.
sitting on his
I got
balcony,
you.
like drinking his
I know.
coffee. When I'm doing whatever. All right, I'm almost done. So the distance from Hockey Town and the ramp, the Cloverleaf by Planet Fitness, you know what I'm talking about? It's that Walnut Street. That little loop-de-doop where it's the, like, if you live here ever, you know that's where you get like ass packed all the time. What is it? It's off the Planet Fitness, the old Kohl's, coming off of that ramp. It's
Yeah,
a cloverleaf
over
that gets
Wa-
onto
on
Route
Walnut
1.
Street.
And the way it's designed, like nobody has enough time to get out of the slow lane. Anyway, everybody runs into each other there. It's probably the highest hazard there is on Route 1.
Okay.
Just Walnut
Yeah.
Street. So coming Walnut Street to get onto Route 1, because the way people have to come off from the other part of the Cloverleaf, or they're coming down Route 1 on a curve, people run into each other all the time. You can see the debris everywhere. Anyway, that's only a 3-minute ride from there to Hockey Town. So that's just to keep in mind. That's a really small window when you're driving 55 to be in that slow lane. It's going to like gridlock that slow lane because you can't really merge out, and you got to stay in it just to
Oh.
get up and over, to get either out of that lane or
Yeah.
to take the exit, which also might encourage people to cut Forest Street to get out of all that minutia.
So I'm sure they'll show us a safe entrance into the project.
I don't think there's anything safe for Walnut. I don't know the solution for Walnut, but
know.
it's a disaster. It's super dangerous. The landscape, the compensatory storage for the water flow. I know you said there was going to be barriers for some of the water runoff, but I'd be concerned because that is such a higher grade, like in all that building, like we're going to be causing even more water to then get redirected and then flood down onto Forest, because Forest goes all the way down.
That's a
and
huge part of the engineering. I think Lynn mentioned it's a 100-page report on the water runs off that building.
But where does it run
that hill
to
and-
besides Forest Street? Do you,
And how it's going to be handled. That's the engineer's plan.
so that, okay, you can, I have one other after that, I'm done.
But it can take into consideration.
Right, the stormwater management assessment that we completed for the project. We're managing the post-development stormwater flows, keeping them at levels, at pre-development levels. So we're not increasing the amount of stormwater leaving the site at the 5 different design points.
All right.
We're keeping the post-development stormwater flows to the pre-existing.
But so is there earth there now, or is it all ledge? Like, are you going to be building into more earth? I know when I had to put a pool in, I had to do compensatory storage because I was putting a cement thing in the ground and there was no earth to absorb rainwater. So I had to run it off
The 2 detention bases that we're building will be constructed in earth.
and then get funneled where?
To the 2 rear corners of the site where stormwater currently goes.
Okay, so fingers crossed it doesn't overflow. Okay, I guess. And then just a side thing, there's a lot of empty retail space on Route 1, these old buildings. I know they're owned by someone, but why aren't we using those as places to develop? Because they're already just sitting there dead and would probably be lovely to be able to revamp or make into a property just like this with a lot less effort and not having to take out so much green space. For example, the one next to Target and some other stuff on Route 1, like we let these people buy these things, build these things, they go out of business, and then they just sit there like a bunch of old rubble growing back earth, you know, which you can bring it back to earth or whatever, but it seems like we
Don't know
just,
how to
why
answer
not
that.
tear down the,
That's-
you know, tear down the forest to put up
Well,
the
that's
parking
not-
lot? Why don't we
We're not
just,
dealing with that here, we're dealing with.
so if
with
you're
this
gonna build
project
more,
here.
can you buy one of the old ones and just put it
You
there?
know, after he gets done with this, Mr. Palumbo.
And make it pretty?
We'll take a look at that.
Make a pickleball court or something? All right, that's all I have. That's all I have.
Anyone else in the audience? Yes, Bob, you're next.
Hi, my name is Sherry. I live on Braycott Road. I'm very opposed to this development. Saugus does not need another housing development. I've been here for 40 years. I literally work full-time. I cannot go on Route 1 at any point in time on the weekend. It would take me a half hour to go 2 miles on the weekend. I don't care what your study says on your traffic. If you don't live here every day, you do not understand the traffic on Route 1. If we put all these residents on Route 1, and as they said, going to the high school or any type of schooling, you're going to be stuck in traffic. Your child's going to be late for school every day. Your child will take about an hour to get home. And I understand you said you think this is good for Saugus. It's not. As Tricia said, there's a ton of land on Route 1. Route 1 is a disgrace to all other towns that I have been in. Half of Route 1 is abandoned, with businesses that are out of business. No one's developed them, and you're taking an area that abuts a residential area, and it's not going to be good for anybody. Everyone's going to be cutting through. I live on Braycott. Forest Street is a cut through, so is Oaklandvale Ave. I have already filmed cars going down Oaklandvale Ave going about 60 miles an hour as a cut through. And this development is not even here yet. I have filmed them. I've already planned to go to the police department, get a petition sent by all the neighbors. It is not, I don't believe in it, and I hope it doesn't pass.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, Robert Long, 26 Bennett Avenue. Before I get started, I have a handout for each one of you. I hope you'll read it. It was just photocopied today, so. For some of you old enough to remember, I was a selectman back from 87 to 91. This particular property came before us, actually came back to us. A previous board of selectmen had denied a special permit, which would allow 40-foot buildings. There were 3 buildings up there. They are 40 feet. The office building, the hotel, and the parking garage. Anyway, it was rejected. They took it to court. The Route 1 Realty took us to court, or took the board at that time to court. And there's a copy of the judgment on the front page that you see there. And in the front, on the judgment, it says that the decision of the Board of Selectmen is hereby annulled. The Board of Selectmen, as the special permit granting authority, is ordered to grant the plaintiff a special permit authorizing construction of the proposed four-story structures of not more than 40 feet in height, which permit may contain reasonable conditions consistent with this order. What is bothersome here, to me, that we, the public, well, as you know, I'm a town meeting member too, we, the public, have not had really a chance to look at this. And in the conditions that were proposed January 5th, it was moved by Mr. Manugian and voted 4-1, Fasano dissenting, to grant a special permit in accordance with Article 12 of the Saugus zoning bylaws to Route 1 Realty Trust, Realty Corporation, AKA Saugus Executive Park, to allow the construction of 4 stories for each of 3 structures planned at 999 Broadway. Now, if you look at this here comes from the minutes that the clerk, town clerk has. These come from the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting of January 5th, 1998. And I won't go through all of them, but several of them are very important to take a look at here. Since we have special counsel tonight, I'm sure that he'll have a chance to look at some of these. But it says any part of any structure relative to this permit to this is point of an adjoining, visual at normal eye level and less than 200 feet from any adjoining residential district shall be screened or enclosed with evergreens suitable, blah, 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 as approved by the Saugus building inspector. Route 1 Realty will provide a 25-foot buffer zone strip on all portions of its property which abut residential zones. Now, the backyards of those houses on Forest Street all abut this property. And as I say, since the public really hasn't had a chance to look at those plans, that street that bends to the left coming off of Route 1 is that street in that, what was supposed to be a buffer zone. Now, these conditions, by the way, according to our special counsel here, they run with the land. We gave them a special permit. These conditions were put on, accepted, and run with the land, as voted by the Board of Selectmen. And so such buffer zone will include a screen of vertical evergreens planting with upward growth patterns. And it goes on not less than 4 feet, et cetera, and shall be in the middle of the buffer zone if necessary. And Route 1 Realty will erect a fence not less than 6 feet to prevent the passage from their property onto adjoining property of any individual or vehicle. Said fence that it will install a directional intensive shading on all exterior lighting. In other words, they're not even supposed to have access to Forest Street.
It sounds like, Mr. Long, we're going to have
Excuse me?
we're going to have council take a look at what you presented. We're going to have council take a look at what presented and come back with an opinion on it.
Oh, exactly.
And that's
But
what
my
we need
point
to
is
do.
this, is, like I said, we haven't, except for what we're seeing tonight, if we'd been able to see this sooner, the question could have been asked sooner on that, whether or
Well, we
not,
got to start sometime.
because the roadway coming for that first building is right into the buffer zone. You look at the roadway, I think it's 24 feet from the one drawing I had a chance to see, and the buffer zone is supposed to be 25 feet wide. That, if we can't uphold something that was agreed to back then for those neighbors on Forest Street, because they will certainly have a roadway, if this is permitted, going right by their property line, 24 hours a day. There can be traffic, and there'll be lighting, and there'll be noise for those folks who invested their livelihood in their property. And that's kind of unfair. But also, too, this is an isolated situation up there. There's no real things for people to do, to go shopping. It's not like they can, I mean, they'll have to walk down to Route 1, walk along Route 1, cross over to the Main Street, if they want to go shopping at Stop and Shop, for example. This is a very poorly conceived concept for that particular area. I hope that the council will see the, the restrictions as being permanent and with the land, and that roadway would somehow have to be changed, if it can be changed. Also, too, I've given you a copy of the letter, and I've just checked with your special counsel, the letter that he wrote back in August to the State Housing Authority, 7 pages here of numerous questions. I don't think you've had a chance to see those. I think it should be seen and read, because so much of what was talked about today is contained in here. And my next question to you folks, are you going to have some kind of outside third-party assistance, representing the town's interest in this?
Talking about peer review? Are you talking about peer review?
Yeah.
Yes.
Have we decided, have you guys decided who it's going to be?
I know that the council is working with the town manager on it, and that should be in place within the week. The peer review isn't named today, but it should be placed within the week.
Is this, okay, and this may not be a question that you can answer. Before voting yes or no, how long do you think that this will take? How long do you have to do this?
This project? This process could be a minimum of 180 days, I would think. I'm looking at you, Lynn, could be up to a year. Could be six months anyway, I would think. In most cases, do you agree with me?
I don't see anything coming.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, Paul Haverty, Blattman,
Yes.
Bobrowski, Haverty, and Silverstein. The regulations allow for a 180-day process before the board is required to close its public hearing. And as Lynn mentioned at the beginning of this process, as we go through, if there appears to be a need for additional time to answer, reasonable questions that are still outstanding, it's very typical that additional time is given.
Does 180 days
Begins tonight.
From tonight?
Correct.
Thank you.
I believe Toll Brothers behind McDonald's and Burger King was 10 months.
We'll see what happens.
I'm just saying, that was 10 months before we voted on it.
All right. Are you going to take this up? I'm not sure you're going to go very far with it tonight based on, what's available here as far as information.
We're going to take some public comments, and then we'll probably set a time for the next meeting.
Which would be, you're going to do this every 2 weeks, or how will it go?
As we'll discuss with council, both councils, and how quickly they want to move. I would think once a month. If they want to move quicker than that, then we will.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do want people in the audience to know, that's okay, you also know, I'm very familiar with this property. I grew up right at the end of Gilway. Right there, as a youth, I was in these woods back here where this is being built. This is where we built our forts. We went ice skating back there. I could, there are places we even, believe it or not, toboggan back there. Spent a lot of time back there. It's a neighborhood I grew up in, and I'm not just pro-development. I care about that neighborhood. So I want people in the audience to realize that. I'm hearing what you have to say. Okay? Is there anyone else? Yes, Mr. Malay?
Yeah, I just want to add just a couple questions. I'm more concerned about the infrastructure of the town. I mean, we have 2 fire departments, one on Essex Street, one on down in the center. I mean, do we have enough infrastructure to have another project coming into Saugus? I mean, that's something that if the town manager was here, I'd ask him the same thing. Same way with the school. I already talked to Anthony.
People have been screaming
How
about
many
a
kids-
third
how
fire,
many kids do we have in
another fire
school?
station for years.
You know, oh, I agree with
And it's
that.
not just this project.
But as far, in the same way with the traffic, I don't know who the kid was that did the traffic study. But I'll tell you right now, on Route 1 starting at 1 o'clock, you won't move a mile going north or south. And the lady is correct. What's gonna happen, and I'm on Main Street right at the highway. These people, if I was driving, I would go up on Main Street, down on Main Street, hit Forest Street, come around and right in. You're gonna either have traffic all that way, or they're gonna go down to the Fells Way and tie up the Fells Way, coming into
Mr. Mullay, you should be addressing the board, not the...
Yeah, well, I'm just letting
The
you know.
audience, yeah.
That's one of the problems you have. Same way with the school. You said you're gonna get a school
We're aware of
bus.
that. That's a
Who's gonna
town-wide
pay-
problem. It's
Who's
not
gonna
just-
pay for the school bus? And the school bus has to go from that development all the way to Essex Street, to go down Vine Street, to come into the high school, and then back out. These kids will be on the bus for an hour. There's just, they need more of a study, especially with the traffic.
Yeah. That's why we have a 6-month process. We're
All
gonna,
right. Okay, you're gonna let everybody know when the next meeting is.
yes.
All right, thanks.
Yes, sir, stand up. Yeah, I see you on the, I'll get you next.
Hi, thank you. I'm Anthony DePisa from Gilway, and I have a couple of questions. I think I heard that the traffic study that was done in the summertime. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the traffic counts that form the basis of the traffic study were completed in July and August of 2024, a
So-
time during which traffic counts are up to 10% above average month conditions and are often referred to as peak month conditions by Mass DOT.
But, I mean, my understanding in July and August, there's a lot less traffic going in and out of Boston, and their schools are not in session, so it seems to me that that is not necessarily a good reflection of the traffic that would be between September and June. So that was one item. I have a question for the board. I don't know a whole lot about the apartment laws, but are there any limits on the number of individuals that can be residents in a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom
there
or
are.
a three-bedroom apartment?
That's more of a building department answer, and I don't know exactly what that answer is.
So,
But there are limits.
my
You can't
understanding
put
is
14
there
people in a
are,
one-bedroom apartment.
my understanding is that there's a number of apartments and apartment buildings where there are probably far more people in one and two-bedroom apartments than either would be reasonable or might be a
Well, I
violation.
think, so on-site management will probably keep that in place. That's one good thing that I heard tonight,
Okay.
that they plan on on-site management. They would see if an apartment was that, there were that many people living in a one-bedroom, let's say. There were two complete families with children in one bedroom.
Right.
They're gonna move them out. Because
Okay.
they're aware of the situation, because they're on-site.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the occupancy requirements are governed by the Massachusetts State Building Code, and it's based on square footage.
And how do those get enforced?
There's going to be a professional management company that is going to be on site in the buildings, so that they will be signing leases and presumably, keeping an eye on things.
Oh, so it's in the lease, that they sign, they have to it's listed how many residents is the cap for that number of bedrooms?
I don't know if that would be in the lease or not, but ultimately it's enforced by the building inspector. It's a state building code requirement. Building inspector has enforcement over state building code issues.
Okay, thanks. And then my last question, because it seems like a number of plans were very well presented. Just to go back to the blasting concerns, is it common that there's also a plan for the blasting, how much needs to be done, and what the impact is in terms of the distance between where the blasting happens and the residents that are along Forest Street? I was wondering if there was a detailed plan that gets presented as part of this process.
Typically, the blasting plan would not be submitted as part of this process. Blasting is controlled by the state, and the fire chief actually oversees it locally. So that would all be part of a process that would occur after the comprehensive permit issues.
So in terms of what the impact is for the abutters or the folks right on Forest Street, I think a comment was made earlier about the blasting on the other side of Route 1 for one of the projects. And I'm about halfway down on Gilway, and we felt the blasting a number of days for that, so this seems like it'll be a lot closer. So it seems like an impact study or mitigation study would be really important.
So the way the state regulations work, within, I think it's 300 feet, there's a requirement that any property owners within that radius be given the option of having a pre-blast survey done. So that would be the blasting company would actually come out, would do a very detailed review of your structure, document any foundation cracks, cracks in the structure itself, things of that nature before blasting. And then if there is a claim after blasting, they would come out and re-inspect and make a determination. And again, blasting is a strict liability question, so if it is clear that there were no issues prior to the blasting and then they occurred after the blasting, then the blasting company would have to make you whole.
And is that survey, pre-blasting survey, is that paid for by the homeowner or by?
No, it's conducted by the blaster. It's paid for by the blaster.
Okay, and if someone who was more than 300 feet away wanted to have a survey done, presumably they could have it done at their own expense and then use that if they need to make a claim.
I think if you are further away, it would probably be better for you to contact the applicant and ask to be included within the pre-blast survey. I think that if you have one done independently, it's probably not going to carry the same weight as if it's one that was done by the blaster.
Okay, so
that would be
we
my
would.
recommendation. If you are outside of the 300 foot, I've had projects where applicant has agreed to extend that radius to 500 feet, just to make sure. And I will say, not everybody within that radius is going to want a blaster to come in, and because it's a very thorough, review of the structure, and they're going to take video of basically every nook and cranny of the house, so that they can document what the condition is pre-blast. So not every homeowner is going to take it up, and there'll be plenty that will, and we'll just go from there.
Okay, so we would be given the name of that company so that if we wanted to contact them about having a survey done, we could do that?
Correct.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
Let me, the first time is first, then I'll have you back up.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. My name is Matthew Sherman. I'm here in my capacity as president of the Malden Anglers Association on 227 Main Street. We're here really to learn about the project because really nothing's been available up to date. Our organization's a nonprofit fly fishing organization. We serve members from all around the region. We employ, we have ongoing veterans support program, groups through Project Healing Waters. If you grew up nearby, you probably poached our pond as a kid. You're welcome, you're fine. It's pretty cool.
Well, no,
So
I never got caught.
that's all right, So if you don't know us, our land's about 5 acres. We're immediately south of the project. You haven't heard anything about us on any of these. We're just behind Joanne behind the fabric store. On the other side of the drainage, there's also a town of Saugus drainage, basically a culvert there. We're just on the other side of that with our space. We're about 5 acres. We're classified as 61B land, right? So the town has a vested interest in our space. You have first dibs. If anything were to happen to us, you would have first dibs on our land. We're 61B. So our main concern is the hydrology of the site and the effect of it. We're a 3-acre pond. We're down, and overall site. We're worried about it during construction, after construction, and kind of for the long time, for the health and safety of our cold water. We are a cold water trout organization. So it's a cold water species that we have. We're a small watershed, and we're completely dependent on groundwater and surface water, much of which is sourced from the hydrology that, from the subject property, right? So it's hydrology, it's not stormwater. I'm a registered engineer. I'm in 15 states and 2 provinces. So hydrology is very different. It's a little bit more. Stormwater is super important, but hydrology will be important for this project. So if you're looking for some peer reviews, I would encourage you, I'll get to hydrology, and a state biologist would help in this, because that's a direct impact on our property. The size and health of our pond and the surrounding wetlands, if you know, there's wetland classification. If you go to the maps, right along the edge of, all along Main Street there, and this where the gas easement is, we're actually the other side of the gas easement as well. We go all the way to the corner with that undeveloped property there. We can't develop it because it's wetland. So that's all going to be affected by this project. There's a lot of things going on there. But that health and safety of the pond is like fundamental to us. So we're concerned that this could really disrupt the club in our organization and could constitute a significant and fundamental taking of the value of our property, right? That's really all it's there for. It started as a gravel pit that filled with water. They couldn't use it as a gravel pit anymore, and it became a fishing club. So we're really curious about what kind of site hydrology testing review and wetlands review has been done, and about how this is going to interact with Concom. I know that it's a consolidated permit process, and I'm curious. I'm not sure what the role of the Concom is in this permit review. And we look forward to being part of that process. We've done a lot of work on that. We're anxious about this. It's a fundamental and existential risk to our existence. We've had past challenges, even back when it was valleys, and with current Joanne's. Mass DEP's been involved a number of times on the site. You'll see now it's all posted for snow removal and stuff because of contamination to our spot and the town of Saugus. There's drainage. You have drainage that runs right through there. It comes across under Route 1, passes under, and then it goes into like basically that culvert and the river that runs all through. You probably played there as a kid. So there's a lot going on there with the hydrology of the site. Because of that risk, we really feel that a hydrologist and a cold water biologist needs to be part of this process, right? It's way more than stormwater review. We're a small group, and the town's really a recent change in taxation. You know, when we started taxing in the town of Saugus, nonprofits, it almost killed us. But we've been able to build ourselves back, mostly in part because we became Chapter 61. We're 61B property now. So you have a vested interest as a town in what happens to that property. Should something happen to us, it will likely become you. So we really, with our limited resources, we're going to be challenged to try to retain a hydrologist on our own. So we asked the board to really add a biological and hydrological peer review to help ensure that the changes that happen upslope of where we are doesn't present a taking of the ground and surface water and affect the microclimate and wetlands that are down around our site. It's really fundamental to our existence. So given the short time frame, I hope you get this involved going on now. We look forward to helping you in the process.
Sir, can you make sure that you exchange contact information with Stephanie?
Absolutely.
Clerk?
Will do.
Okay, so
Yep. Thank you very much.
And she'll get that in turn when needed to council and such. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Yes. I'm sorry.
I'm just reflecting, I'm concerned about the blasting adjacent to the gas line, because I don't want to end up on the news. If any of you have been around long enough to remember the Stop and Shop that was built down the hill from Granada on Broadway, Malden, which is now a complex, Strata or something, apartment complex. I was living in Granada Highlands on one of those big apartment buildings back when they were blasting, and I remember quite clearly when they would blast, the entire building would shake. I was too young and ignorant to know or care. Now the building's still there, but the reality of, I don't know how many feet and whatnot, but I remember just feeling it. And now my home is a lot closer to this site and adjacent to the gas line. And I'm just concerned about, like, how can you really delicately blow up the ledge without affecting the people on the streets right near us?
Well, the fire marshal is involved, the fire chief and stuff, the fire department's fully involved in it. You'll do a pre-screening, any damage.
Well, I don't want the damage. That's where I want to.
Seismographs, they'll do screen, you'll be taken care of. on that.
All right, preventative would be the goal.
They're professional, and you would, as an abutter, you would do the pre-screening.
Well, yes, I would, and I don't mind someone coming in and looking at all the nooks and
Yeah, no,
crannies.
it only takes 5 minutes, they go through your house, and
But it's definitely concerning that everything's really close to the gas line. Like,
they're gonna consider that too. Toll Brothers on the other side of the highway, there's a huge gas line where they built that, and that had the same concern. More so, I think it might be the same gas line, I'm not sure.
I just want to point
Cross
out,
highway.
Yeah.
blasting is very, very heavily regulated in the state. It requires, state oversight, the fire chief oversight. It can only be done by a licensed blaster. They are very protective of their blasting licenses because it's their livelihood. I don't think that there will be, first of all, I don't think that there's going to be a significant amount of blasting as compared to, say, the Toll Brothers site. I think there's less blasting involved here. But the blasting that will occur will be done very carefully to minimize any impacts. And again, it's strict liability. So they don't want to cause any cracks in foundations or anything else. They're very careful about the size of the blasts, the impact of the blasts.
You'll be next. Sir, you'll be next. Sir, would you like to? Thank you.
10 Braycott Road, I've been here for 60 years, I've lived in my house for 32 years.
Thanks.
With the blasting that's occurred over the years, how do we know what happens underneath the floor foundation? Where I take on water. I didn't take on water 32 years ago. I take on water every so often because of the water table that
where are
we
you?
have, Braycott Road. Stress crack on my unfinished side of my foundation floor, which wasn't there 32 years ago. How did it get there? More than likely, the blasting that's happened over the development of all these big buildings on Route 1 and these other places. Can I prove that? Of course I can't prove that. But how does, when they say they inspect, you can inspect walls, you can't inspect underneath a house. You can't. You can't, on the south side of the floor, you can't see. Nobody can see. So that's where the water's gonna come in, through the floor, when the crack develops underneath the poured floor. You can't see that. Nobody can see that because it's underground. Blasting is going to disturb foundations. They're not really going to disturb walls. They're going to disturb the floor more than anything. That's my take on it.
Anyone else in the audience? Okay.
Hi, my name's Charles Rowe. I've been a resident of Saugus since the 60s on the Fellsway. I have two concerns, mainly the traffic. Now, his study was done, and he said he's going to put out 1,000 cars onto Route 1. And he said technically there's, how many cars? 60,000 there a day now. But most of those cars just pass through. a lot of the cars are gonna come out of this complex, people are gonna leave for work, they're gonna go down Route 1, they're gonna take a right down Main Street. They're not gonna stay on Route 1 and go to Boston, the majority of them. They're gonna go different ways. They may have to go Route 1 North, they're gonna get in the Cloverleaf on Main Street, which is already a nightmare. You're gonna have traffic, not only is gonna back up on Route 1, on the right-hand side, they won't be able to get off. They're gonna be stuck on the highway, won't be able to get on the Cloverleaf to go down Main Street even. It's just gonna be a traffic nightmare. Most people that will leave that facility will be going different directions, different times, and there's already enough traffic there. The Route 1 hasn't changed in 50 years, but everything around it has changed. You still have apartment complexes that aren't even finished yet. I believe the one behind McDonald's is not even done yet. That traffic hasn't come on. Is it all done?
I don't think it might not be fully occupied, but they've opened.
They've opened, so you're gonna throw that traffic on Route 1 too, once that place is full.
I don't know how occupied they are, but they
So
are open.
I think that the town really has to do a traffic study of the whole town. It's not only this one complex. Where you built the school on Vine Street, where it intersects Main Street, that's a traffic nightmare. That traffic light's a nightmare. Everywhere you go in Saugus is a nightmare. I have a friend who rides his bike to school. He teaches at the Northeast Regional Vocational School. He rides his bike from Saugus Center to the vocational school because it's faster than driving the car. So, I mean, it's just bad. And the other thing I have is about the water. You said you were going to contain the water on the site into catch basins, right? Is that what you said? Who has the catch basins? This gentleman here? Yes. Okay.
The stormwater will be
So you're
collected in
going to throw all
catch
this water in
basins.
catch basins, right?
Correct.
What's underneath the catch
through the
basins?
chair.
Where's it going to drain to?
Drains to the corners of the site where the water currently flows to.
Yeah, and what's underneath there? Where does it go? It's going to fill up, right, eventually? And where's it going to go? What's underneath the ground? Did you test bore or anything? Is it already, do you know what's underneath the ground there? You have people on Gilway that are pumping water out every storm. They're already pumping water out. They're going to throw more water in there? You're taking virgin land that absorbs water. Those trees absorb water. The soil absorbs water. Now you're going to put hot top there and drain into a catch basin that's going to go in the ground. How do you know it's not going to fall the ledge that's going to go in these people's houses on Gilway?
Because the detention basins are being built in earth areas, not on top of ledge.
It's not all ledge there. Saugus isn't ledge. That whole area is all ledge.
Well, not
Okay.
in,
You also have brooks there that haven't been cleaned in 30 years. The water doesn't move out of that area anymore like it used to. All the leaves go in these brooks. The state used to come 30 years ago and backhoe all the stuff out of there so the water could flow. Now it's all backed up in the ground. So,
well, that might be a
did you guys
subject for the
study any of this stuff?
DPW to deal with.
yeah, well, you have a site, and on your site, your duty is to contain your own water.
That's correct.
And you gotta tell the people where the water's gonna go.
And maintain existing drainage patterns.
Right. So the water's gonna go in these catch basins, then where's it go? You have to do a study.
We have done a study.
And where's it go?
It goes to the same corners of the site where it currently flows at a reduced rate.
It's gonna go in that lady's house. It's gonna be in your house.
Let's,
Yeah, these catch basins are full of water.
there was a
right?
full,
Then where's it go?
So,
Where's it
Mr.
go
Chairman,
to the
this
ground?
issue is going to be
And
peer
where's it go
reviewed
to
by
the
your
ground?
peer
Where's
review
your house?
consultant.
Because it's full.
Mr. Rowe,
Those brooks are never, do you ever see them dredge the brook on Gilway or Milano?
Mr. Rowe, to the board.
Huh?
Keep it up here.
Okay.
It's
So-
gonna be, that's
so
one of the reasons we
I
have-
think if you're gonna accept.
All the arguments you're making.
Okay.
We're gonna have a peer reviewer
Okay.
who's gonna,
I think if you're gonna do a project like this, I think you have to have a traffic study in the town. It's just gonna bring at some point, this town has to have a traffic study. Route 1 is a nightmare.
I don't think you're not gonna find anyone to disagree with what you're saying.
You know, I have friends who come visit me, business associates. They're petrified to drive on Route 1, and they're 30 or 40 years old. They've had licenses for years. They They come from different parts of the country, and they say, I'm not driving on that road. It's just a bad road. But anyway, that's my
That's why we
opinion.
have peer review to go over
I think they
the
have to review
water.
the traffic in the town in general. And I think the police should be involved, the traffic police or whatever, sergeant, traffic sergeant or whatever.
They will be.
Anyway, thank you for your time.
You, thanks. Is there anyone else in the audience? Just remember this, if you didn't have what you had to say tonight and you think of it, these meetings are going to go on for a long time. So you'll be able to, there's going to be an open forum for people to speak. What we need to do now, and I think it's the two attorneys want to decide more than anyone else, when do we want to meet again, the third Thursday next month? Or before that, or what are you two thinking?
Mr. Chair, it's entirely up to the board when you would like to meet
Okay.
next. Just
I'm just
before-
asking if that's convenient for all. So we'll meet again the third Thursday
February 20th.
in February?
I will not be here. I will be out of state.
Yeah, that's an issue.
February 20th.
When are you out of?
At that location. No text found at that location.
Does anyone else have a conflict?
That's the third.
Yeah, but I don't, I mean, attendance is so strict, missing two meetings and this and that, and
So-
something happens and we have such a short board.
Mr. Chair, where, as you said earlier, where the public hearing is likely to go on 180 days, if not more, if that's agreed to by the developer, it's important that the board members, to the maximum extent possible, be available for all of the meetings.
Yes.
Because if any of the members, you can miss one meeting and review the minutes, but you can't miss two. If you miss two, you become ineligible to vote.
Right.
And that could become an issue down the road. So if you have one of your members already at the second hearing who's unavailable, it's advisable to pick a date that everyone would be available.
Yeah,
And-
well, we don't have alternates, that's our problem.
Right. You're also able, if you'd like, you can schedule this for your regular meeting nights. That would obviously make it a longer meeting, but where the first meeting has taken place and there's been the lengthy presentation and neighborhood comment, subsequent meetings may not be as long.
Well, we could do again the fourth Thursday. Is everybody around for the fourth Thursday?
27th?
Yeah. Does it look like a busy month? And it doesn't look like you might have a regular meeting that month, but we don't expect a large agenda.
Nope. She said only one. 27th.
With all due respect, we filed this on October 31st. We've waited almost we've waited a long time to have this meeting, and you're suggesting having the next meeting 7 weeks out.
right,
It
then
is
let's-
your 180 days, and you can do what you want with it, but, we're
Okay, Lynn, we're listening.
yeah, we're
wanna
we're
try-
frustrated that there aren't peer reviewers chosen over this
Right, and
long.
it doesn't have to be on a Thursday either, you want to try the second Thursday?
13th?
That doesn't work for Peter. Okay. So we have to, want to try, Stephanie, when are you away?
I'm away the 18th.
Which is what day of the week?
That is Tuesday.
So is this project approved and we as a town?
No, it's not approved yet. This is the approval process. This is the process. It is not approved yet.
So the more that we attend and the more evidence that we get that this is not good for our town, the more chances we have of getting it not approved. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, I would say, yeah.
Move somewhere else in the town that is more efficient for the town. And not to invade neighbors, there's plenty of properties over there. So that's fine, I just want to know.
This project is not approved yet. This is the
If I
process.
was standing on Route 1 with a video camera, all hours of the day, it can take
doesn't work for you.
Standing school committee.
12? 12, that's a Wednesday.
I don't care what day of the week for me.
Office.
It's a Wednesday.
I could go 12th.
The 12th, which is a Wednesday.
Mr. Chairman, can I also ask you a question? Is it possible to maybe set out a schedule so that each meeting we cover a topic, so that we don't have to have all of our peer reviewers, or all of our team here every meeting? Like, we take up traffic first, which seems to be a big thing, and then maybe we do stormwater and architectural and so on?
Yes, that's.
So, you know, we're happy to
Yeah,
do
you
what
don't,
you
you don't
want
have
us
to
to
bring all
do.
5 people, I understand.
But yeah, so whatever date you decide on, you let us know what
But we want to
topic
get
you
a quick
wanna
date,
cover.
that's. So everyone's good with April 12th?
February 12th.
Yeah, excuse me, February 12th? Not February 9th, February 12th.
What day of the week is it?
That's a Wednesday?
Hold on, let's come up with a date. So we're looking for the next meeting being Wednesday, February 12th.
That's fine.
That work?
In line so bad.
Mr. Chair,
What?
I can't do February 12th. I'm in East Bridgewater.
That's okay. So,
Mr. Chair, if I may, based on the potential for conflicts with other board members and point of order, I query whether Planning Board Chairman O'Brien is aware that one of his members is playing hooky from the meeting tonight, Mr. Long. In order to avoid conflicts with other town board meetings, it may be advisable for you to hear this on your regular meeting nights going forward.
all right.
And that,
When's your regular
that would
meeting?
include
So the next meeting, we'll
potentially,
just do the regular meeting night.
that would include potentially, Mr. Chair, you have a meeting next Wednesday. The applicant is concerned about timeframes. You could put them on your agenda for for the following Thursday. For example, for a presentation of civil or traffic, whatever the board would like to hear next.
Jesse, we're not going to have any peer reviews done in the next week. We don't even have the contracts.
Mr. Chair, just as a suggestion also for point of order so we can get the logistics lined up, perhaps it's in order for the board to close the hearing to testimony for the evening, for both from the public and the applicant.
Okay, one more, I'll let this woman speak to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name's Dorothea Duggan. I live on Breakheart, and if we're all going to be coming and spending a lot of time at all of these meetings, I just have a suggestion, if it's possible, to have let's go old school, an easel with some pictures on it. That was impossible to see up there, even when you zoomed it. You're talking about colors, orange, blue. We couldn't see anything from there. So if we could just have a few diagrams, maybe, that we could look at, see where Forest Street is, see where the building is, make it a little easier for us to get our minds around what you're proposing. And my question is definitely the height. I'm on Breakheart, so I'm one behind Forest,
Okay,
so
yeah.
I can see right from my backyard that mountain, and I know I will see that building. So when you hang your balloon up there, I'm going to go in the backyard, see if I can see your balloon. So let me know what day that is.
So are we back in having the night of our regular meeting in February? Which was the 27th?
Yeah, there's not enough time to do it at our next scheduled meeting.
And I know you didn't want to go out to the 27th, but that's, our regular meeting's usually the fourth Thursday. The fourth Thursday of each month. And next week, of course, is, too short a period of time. And then we don't
So I
meet
thought you
again.
were talking about like the 13th, 14th, 15th, like of February. I'm confused as to like the 13th or 12th of February. Or what happened to that, or the
Everybody
18th,
seems-
19th?
They seem to have conflicts on those nights.
Your members have conflicts on those nights? So when do they not have a conflict in mid-February?
What's that Monday night? Before you leave, what night is that?
The 17th or the 10th?
That's President's Day.
That's a holiday.
The other possibility is that we take up several topics in one night if you're going to push it late in February. We're going to expect all of the peer reviews to be done at least 3 weeks prior so that we can respond to them and we can have a really productive meeting for everybody.
Well, let's, as council, let me do fairly, as council suggested, let's close the meeting to, close the meeting to comment at this time. Have a motion?
Motion so made.
Okay. Seconded?
Second.
All board members say aye.
Aye.
All right, so the meeting's closed for comment. We're still down to setting a date for the next meeting. I'm open. I think Chris and Bob are are very flexible. It's Stephanie and the two Stephanies and Peter have to figure out a night.
So we're not going to do it with the regular meeting night?
I think it would be too much on that regular meeting to have all 5 people in doing peer reviews. Well,
We don't have to have 5. What date are you on now?
if we did it at the regular meeting on the 27th, we would be everybody doing it that night, and you're saying that would be a lot.
I think we would want to take at least two topics that night if we could.
So it's the 10th out, that's a Monday.
As far as was that President's Day, the 10th?
No, that's the 17th.
So we can do the 10th of February? Could we be ready with any peer review by the 10th? Or is that too short time, Jesse?
10th would be cutting it a little close. Personally, I think that it's unlikely.
So the 27th with 2 topics?
The 27th with 2 topics, Lynn?
How about the 18th?
I'm so sorry. I think the 27th will allow a lot to be accomplished, but we just want to make sure we can accomplish a lot at the meeting. So yes, we will be available on the 27th to cover 2 topics. And then the only other question is whether or not, if and when you might want to do a site walk. When do you think the appropriate time for that is?
I do have a question for Mr. Palumbo. Is, from the parking garage, you see the site for myself? I can't walk it.
Yes, and there's an elevator.
So I can go into the parking garage and get a good look at the site?
Yes, there's an elevator there, you can take,
Okay.
take the elevator, you can see quite a bit of the site.
Just, there's no way I'm walking it.
That's what they used when they did the mass
I know it
housing
from my youth,
sidewalk.
but I'm not walking it.
It'll be like depends on weather, Tom. What you would do to get some snow on Sunday? It's not supposed to be heavy or anything, but potentially if you kick it out a few weeks, God only knows what's coming.
If we're looking at the next meeting being the 27th on this. And are we going to determine what topics are going to be taken up that night? Lynn, what topics will we take up on the 27th? Do you want to get back to us on that?
I think traffic and stormwater are the biggest topics that we're going to be dealing with.
So the 27th, we'll at least get traffic and stormwater. And if you wanted to get to any other subjects that could be done, just let Stephanie know. But at least plan on those 2.
Well, they have, so the issue is that it's going to take you a week to get the traffic, to get the peer reviews in. We're going to want to, look at them, then they're going to have to do the work. So, we're hoping that they can get their peer reviews done, by
Well, then we better go by
the first or so week in February, so that we can then respond to them. So I think that there's a lot to discuss on stormwater, and there clearly is a lot to discuss on traffic, and traffic also encompasses parking. So I think that's a really good bite.
Okay.
We're not quite sure what you
All
have.
right,
And,
so we're gonna do
you know,
traffic and
architecture is important, but probably not as important to
Okay.
to
We'll do traffic
everybody.
and stormwater on the 27th.
Great.
And how about a site view on that Saturday before that?
That would be the 22nd.
Which would be the 22nd?
Yep.
Everybody around?
I will not be here.
Is everybody
That's-
around for the 22nd?
That's the week I'm going away.
So you're not around for that?
Nope.
Are you around for the 15th?
Yes.
Everybody around for the 15th of February, which is a Saturday?
What time? Noon?
So a site view on the 15th
Time?
of February, what did I say, 11 o'clock?
So just to keep in mind, I think school vacation week is like the 15th through the 22nd. We will certainly make ourselves available if you're available.
Is everybody,
15th, sure.
I don't think anybody has little kids to worry about on the board right now, so.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
I'm saying 11 o'clock. Is that fine?
Earlier the better.
Okay.
Does that sound good for a site view on the 15th at 11 o'clock?
At 11 o'clock. So we'll plan on doing what we did last time, which is to meet on the top floor of the parking garage, just so that people know that. And we'll take, and we'll sort of do some pointing, and
So
then
you
if
enter where
people
the
really
hotel
want to
is, you
walk,
go
we'll
up to
walk.
the top floor and we'll find you.
Yep, that's the best thing.
Mr. Chairman, is that going to be open to the public? Site
And
visit?
do we open that to the public or just,
Has to be.
that's open to the public also, correct?
Where is it?
I don't think she heard you, Tom.
Where is it? Where
Lynn?
would we meet?
I think that's, we have to prepare that to open to the public if they show up. It's a
That
board
is
meeting.
absolutely up to you, and Jesse, I think, can probably advise you as to how you can handle it, as to whether it is a public meeting or not.
So, yeah, so Mr. Chair, it's not a session of the public hearing, so the members of the public could attend if they would like to. The board can direct that, and the applicant would be encouraged to go along and allow that access to the site. The limitation being that it's not a public hearing, the board can't take testimony. There can be no advocacy either by the abutters
Right.
or the developer. It's just a site walk for questions and things to be pointed out.
So there's a site walk, but you can't ask questions of any, really, or make any comments. They're trying to push your agenda. Mr. Long?
I believe you've closed the meeting to testimony tonight, Mr. Chair.
Yep,
We closed it, but
comments.
Yeah, I'll make this quick. Based on the information I gave you earlier, can you quickly get a legal opinion as to the regard, as far as those conditions are concerned on that special permit? Are they still in existence?
we closed the comment. Jess is gonna take a look at it. We closed the hearing to comment.
I'm just asking,
This is
can
off
you,
topic. We're
can
talking about the site
you
visit.
can you get a legal opinion on that, on the special permit conditions? Not me, you.
We'll have some before the 27th. Jesse will review that and give us an opinion on it.
And,
Put some guidance on it before the 27th.
The two buildings, is one going to be used for affordable housing and the other one not?
I don't know at this time.
Because according
Well,
to the paper,
we closed it to commentary.
I'm just going to say that
The meeting's closed.
if one is and one isn't, the one that isn't going to be
I
used
don't know when the meeting's
is
closed.
subject to planning board.
Meeting's
Thank you.
closed, Bob. I can't really. So do I have I think we have our next meeting set. We have site set. Mr. Riley?
I just want to, having plans for each meeting, for example, if you want to cover traffic and stormwater at a particular meeting, I'm fine with that. I think it makes sense. But, living in town and hearing what people have to say tonight and what people are going to say or expect to be able to say at upcoming meetings, I think that we really should not reasonably expect to cover traffic in one night. So if somebody wants to come at the next meeting, after next time, and they want to talk about traffic, we're going to let them talk about traffic.
Okay, yeah, no,
You are in control of your meetings. We will make our team available as best we can.
Understand?
Oftentimes with peer reviews, there is a back and forth
right,
with that.
okay. So we have our site visit set and our next meeting set. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is it seconded?
Mr. Chair, if I'm sorry, before you take that vote, you should vote first to continue the meeting to the date that you've selected, the 27th, and then vote to adjourn.
Make a motion to continue the meeting to the 27th of February for the purpose, the main purpose to go over traffic and stormwater, and also a motion for site visit on the 15th of February, 11 o'clock at the, do I have a second?
Second.
That's seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now do I have a motion to adjourn? Is that seconded?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We're adjourned.